I want to just highlight here the social justice in our Catholic schools, in that all students have the right to quality instruction. And one of the things that I have seen in the many schools that I'm working with now, in my consulting work, the coaching work that I've been doing, the work with leaders, is that not everyone agrees on what quality instruction looks like. So the question to pause and for you to ponder about is, do your colleagues agree on what that looks like? Do your students know what it feels like to get quality instruction? And this is really important. Students can give you the most honest feedback, but often they want approval from the teachers, so they won't dare to say anything. But it is very important to think about, do you and your colleagues agree on what quality instruction looks like? And therefore, do we all agree on academic excellence? Because if we can't agree on the behaviors inside our building that lead to student achievement, then we may be having incongruent definitions of what academic excellence is. So let's get started with clarifying some of these misconceptions. So let's clarify the misconceptions with quality strategies. We want to be careful as lead learners to not create a situation where a teacher comes to you and says, I've been doing this, I see no results. So we want to make sure we can dig deeper into the learning that's happening, not just checking off the strategy. One of them is summarizing and note-taking. We want to make sure that you do a quality check. Active note-taking requires annotation, connections, and, just asking questions as you are writing notes. This is not something where it's a long summary of things that ends up just being basically a copy almost of whatever content is being uncovered. It is very important that if you really want to see active note-taking, you hear questioning, you see annotations, you see markings on the paper, and pauses. It's not just copying notes. This is very important. If you see someone copying notes and calling that note-taking, that is not what this highly effective instructional strategy is about. It has to be interactive. Homework and practice. Practicing 5, 10, 15 questions, 20, 30 problems incorrectly is not good. If you walk into a math class and the teacher is assigning 30 questions for homework, some of them very similar, and there's no way for the students to check after the first, second, or third question whether they're even practicing this correctly, it is not quality practice. There's a lot of conversations around whether homework is good. If students are going to do homework and are practicing questions incorrectly, that is not going to be an effective practice. When this practice was identified, homework as a quality practice, it was not because it was a bunch of problems, just busy practice. That was not this. It was quality practice where students were able to synthesize their learning, practice with feedback, and so forth. So please make sure that we don't confuse that. Know the purpose of the practice, making sure the practice is correct practice. A lot of the time students are practicing and they go home and create more misconceptions, and it's so hard to undo that incorrect practice. Make sure it's correct practice. These don't work in isolation. Feedback is an integral part of this practice, so you can get a double win. If students are practicing a bunch of things and not getting feedback immediately, and it doesn't mean by you, it could be a program that gives them immediate feedback. It could be they're given an answer key that they can look at afterwards. They can give an exemplar work so that they can compare their work with the exemplar work. All of those things are the things that you want to look for quality checks. Setting objectives and providing feedback. Marking something right or wrong is not quality feedback. Rubrics that only give points is not quality feedback. Rubrics should have a reflection in detailed areas of strengths and growth. The feedback should be giving direction. The feedback should allow the student to set a goal. Model how to provide effective feedback, and it can be provided by peers, yourself, an adaptive software, etc. Students don't have to wait to get feedback from you. You can create structures where they're getting feedback from themselves, from peers, etc. I wanted to present you this with a barometer of influence when it comes to research of best practices. And Hadi, in his work around visible learning, has also identified effective feedback as one of those practices that yields results. But we must understand that there are things that make this feedback quality, which means it's consistent. Another instructional strategy I wanted to highlight is this idea of reinforcing effort and providing recognition. It's so important to celebrate, but we want to make sure that when we are providing recognition, we are specific about what is earned. We want to engage students in tracking progress and celebrating rituals. After good or awesome, add an explanation, make it consistent and simple so that it's doable. So there are times where students have their own systems for celebration, including celebrating leaders have systems for celebrating teachers as well. Cooperative learning, a quick quality check. Make sure you model what it looks like. Make sure you're hearing academic discourse. Make sure we know that there are assigned roles. Make sure we realize that kids sitting in a table together or in groups, it's not equal to cooperative learning. You want to make sure that that students reflect on that cooperative experience. And again, students sitting in groups, it's not cooperative learning. You want to make sure you dig deeper into what's happening in that group to ensure that it is of quality. So should we see them all every day? Of course not. You want to at least see a couple every day. You also maybe have seen learning cubes that put together different types of research. You see the high yield instructional strategies on the top. But you got to be clear about what are your expectations. Your teachers need to be enrolled in what is it that you're focusing on and celebrating. Everybody needs to know the why. Does your evaluation incorporate quality instruction? This is an opportunity now for you to go to your Module 4 notes and write your reflection there. You can also see a couple of other resources. There's a Danielson rubric, very well researched author who created a rubric on instructional best practices that yield student achievement. So you can look at that to give you some ideas. Now we're ready to wrap up. Hopefully this experience, although different, we would like to hear about how it went.